Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope that everybody's having a great and wonderful day. As for me, I have to figure out why I'm not being allowed to invite guests on. Well, good morning to everyone and welcome to Daring Dialogues. My name is Shantae Charles and I'm your host for today. Normally, I would sing my good morning song, but we have had some technical difficulties this morning. So I am going to jump right into our reading. Today is Wednesday, Relationship Wednesday, where we talk about all things relationship. All right, and we are looking at two books today: Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself, and Drama Free, A Guide to Managing Unhealthy Family Relationships. We have been reading through these for a couple of seasons now, and as you can see, we are moving right along. We're about to the halfway point on both of these books. And we're taking our time because these are some very important topics that I think everybody can benefit from. So, in the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace, this book is more about personal boundaries. Drama Free is more about family boundaries. And with that being said, we're going to look at a section in the chapter, What Are You Doing to Honor Your Boundaries? Chapter 9. And this is boundaries around finances and boundaries around time management. Here is the synopsis for today that we're going to take a look at. Finances. Kyle and only Kyle can change the way he views his finances and spends his money. In our sessions, we talked about helpful beliefs versus harmful beliefs. He acknowledged that his beliefs about money were destructive as he had to borrow money, was in debt, and struggled financially despite making a decent income. In our work together, he began to adopt more helpful beliefs about money, such as, I don't have to spend every penny I earn. Kyle also began creating self boundaries like these. I will save 10% before buying myself something new. I will create a budget for my spending and use the budget as a guide to curb impulse purchases. I won't spend more without having money saved, even if I earned more. Kyle's new limits gave him structure around how to manage his money. Before setting these limits, he didn't think beyond the moment and suffered the consequences later. Although imposing boundaries on his finances created limitations, it also provided relief and helped Kyle move more swiftly toward his financial goals. Another critical boundary around finances is learning when to say yes and no to others who seek to borrow or use you as a financial resource. Boundaries to consider if you are having this issue with the people in your circle, with your family members. Think about these boundaries to consider for yourself. I will not loan money to anyone I can't afford to offer it if I can't afford to offer it as a gift. That is a boundary that I already have. um, because I know that sometimes people just fall on hard times and they just simply are not going to be able to pay you the money back. So you don't want, well, I know for me, I don't want certain things hanging over people's heads because when people feel like they owe you, sometimes they disappear or they stop talking to you or they stop communicating with you because they know they owe you. And for me, I would rather give somebody the help or the assistance as a gift and not have that thing or that payment or that owing or loaning of money sitting between that person and myself. So that is a boundary to consider. You can think about, I will not loan money to anyone if I can't afford to offer it as a gift. Second boundary, I will co-sign a loan for someone only under the following conditions. Now, I know this is a big one with a lot of people. Most people these days will not co-sign a loan. They just don't feel comfortable doing it. But if you have some conditions that that person needs to meet, then you could add that as a part of your boundary. Another one, I will not co-sign for anyone. Because again, when it comes to co-signing, if that person does not follow through with their end on payment or whatever, you are pretty much stuck with the responsibility. So that to me goes back to, if I cannot be sure that this person is going to take care of this, I need to be able to be clear in my mind. If that person skips out on that debt, could I pay it without a problem and without feeling a sense of resentment for that person? All of that would go into whether or not I would be willing to co-sign for someone. All right. And then the last one, I will establish emergency savings. And good morning to those of you who are coming in. Now, keep in mind, I believe the data I was looking at yesterday, because I was reading some financial articles and reports, the data I was looking at yesterday said that most people do not have emergency savings of at least $1,000 on hand. So if you have emergency savings and you have at least $1,000 on hand, you're actually doing pretty good. Of course, most people would like to have more than that on hand, right? But they're saying that the average, especially in the United States, the average American does not have at least $1,000 in emergency savings. All right, and good again, hello and good morning to those of you coming in. Remember, people can ask you for anything, but it's up to you to maintain your boundaries by saying no or setting limits as to how much and how little you can help them. So if you're just coming in, we're reading from Set Boundaries, Find Peace. This is Relationship Wednesday, and we're talking about what are you doing to honor your boundaries, and this boundary was finance. The next boundary is time management. Now, I don't know about you, but again, for me, time management is a very, very important one because I feel like time is sacred. Time is one of those things that you can't get back. And so my boundary is, if you waste my time, chances are I won't be allowing you to waste my time again. How about that? If you waste my time, I'm not going to give you a second opportunity to waste my time. Now, I know sometimes I run across people where time is not sacred to them, right? Time is not sacred to them. Good morning. If you're entering into a broadcast that's already going on, just know that good morning and hello has been said, and try to listen to what's being said, okay? So, time management. If you waste my time, because time is a big deal for me, I'm less likely to allow you to waste my time a second time. There are other people, though, that time is not sacred to them. You call them, you ask them, hey, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I'm just passing the time, right? So you have those people that have that attitude that time is sort of is fluid. I can waste it, I can spend it, I can do nothing with it. And then you have people like me who, because of my neurodivergence, I keep track of time very specifically. I use a timer a lot of times when I'm working on projects or when I'm meeting with students. And so time for me is a valuable thing. It's a very sacred thing. Um, so time management, let's listen to what she says here in this writing. A lack of self-discipline is symbolic of a lack of self-boundaries. At this very moment, I have a screensaver on my phone that reads, I don't have time to waste time. So she probably falls in the category that I do. I set this reminder to prevent myself from wasting valuable time on my phone, shopping online, or browsing the internet. It isn't wrong to do those things, but it's essential for me to use my device intentionally. I make time to use social media. I make time to shop online. I make time to browse the internet when it makes sense for me. I just try to avoid doing it while I'm supposed to be writing a book, for example, or helping students. I know that this is a big, big thing. As we go back to school, there are a lot of states now that are not allowing students to carry their devices into the classroom. Now, there are some pros and some cons to that. When it comes to that, I think that you should allow students at this point in our American history to carry their phones into the classroom because we have not facilitated enough safety when it comes to schools. And sometimes when something tragic happens, like unfortunately a school pew pew, right? That line of communication for children to be able to grab their phone or contact their parent or call the police because something has gone down inside of their classroom space, a lot of times that has actually been helpful for the children to say, this is going on, this is where we are in the building. I do understand that people say, hey, these phones should not be out all the time, right? Because their focus needs to primarily be on classroom instruction. But I do think that they're going to run into probably some problems as the school year goes on when those phones are completely taken away from students. But we'll see how it goes. She says, I love to read articles and books and listen to podcasts about time management. But truthfully, they all say the same thing. Manage your distractions, plan wisely, and cut back on things that are a waste of time. Simply put, your boundaries around how you manage your time are the solution to your time management issues. Boundaries to consider when it comes to time management. I admit to myself that I can't do everything. I will stop trying to do everything and ease into doing what I can without overbooking myself. I will check my calendar before I say yes to any request. I plan to be on time by giving myself more time than I need. That's a definite boundary that I have, especially where I live here in the DMV. If you miss a certain window of time in your travel, what could have taken you maybe 30 to 40 minutes to drive to could turn into 2 hours if you get on the road at the wrong time. So you definitely, for me, that would be a definite boundary. Planning to be on time by giving myself more time than I need. I can delegate what I can, especially the things that I don't need to do myself. Put myself on a schedule. Write the schedule down and stick to it. Put yourself on a schedule, write the schedule down, and stick to it. I know quite a few people that say, hey, by the time I get to my afternoon, by the time I get to my evening, I feel so exhausted. I don't feel like doing anything, much less exercise. So guess what? They've decided to put themselves to an early morning exercise schedule and they are sticking to it because it makes more sense for them to do it in the morning or to do it early before their work when they have the plenty of energy and drive and motivation to do it. I plan my day. Anybody else plan their day? I plan my day with a Google Calendar. I put in all of my schedule. I put in what I'm supposed to be doing. If I have a client meeting, I put in just a little bit of bullet points about what I'm supposed to be covering. And so I plan my day. All right. I put realistic plans into place to avoid distractions. I put realistic plans into place to avoid distractions. So these are two areas, and next time we'll look at two more. Time management and finances. What are you doing to honor your own boundaries? All right. We're moving to her next writing, Drama Free. And in this writing, this chapter is entitled Building Support Outside Your Family. Building support outside your family. Really, she's talking about, and she has been talking about in this chapter, chapter 10, the importance of chosen family. If you are in an environment where your family has not necessarily been your primary support system, what the author, Dr. Tawab, argues here is that you can still build chosen family. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to be isolated, but think about the ways in which you can build your chosen family. So, building support outside of your family. This is something I say oftentimes, and I'm glad that she starts out with this in this section. She says, be who you needed. Be who you needed. Think about your early forms of community, your early forms of connection, and think about who did I need? Did I need more aunties? Did I need more uncles? Did I need, were you a part of were you an only child? Do you feel like, man, I wish I had that sibling relationship? Be who you need. It is cliche, but it's true. Sometimes you can't find a person to fill a role, so you have to do the job yourself. Be the person you would have looked up to in childhood. Make yourself proud by becoming what you wish existed in your family. Now, I can say I had a little bit of both. I had lots of extended family members. I had aunties, I had uncles that were looking out for me. I had people in my neighborhood that were looking out for me. So I was, I had extended family, but I also had community family. Not everybody had that, right? And so think about, what is it that I needed that I wish somebody would have done for me? I spend a lot of time right now thinking about, especially in the education sector, what is it that I would have wanted someone to do for me as a young person to help move me along faster when it came to academics, when it came to college, when it came to um, life planning, life experience, and I'm working on that, like being that person for younger people, helping them to understand college choices, helping them to understand what things you need to know if you are going to be going away from home. Things I wish I would have known as a younger student, a younger person. So be who you needed to be. Be who you needed in your life. Building community. Your family is just one part of your community, and you can be in community with many others who might provide what you need. I know right now I just read a story that was very inspiring that's happening in Baltimore, where people are doing community fridges. They are essentially putting a fridge in the community where people can pick up different items like produce and things of that nature. Not necessarily easy to spoil items, but they're starting these community fridges to be a support to people who um, have some food insecurity. That's a community building activity. Maybe you are the person in your community that is growing a garden, or maybe you're growing food at home. Maybe you're not doing an outdoor garden, but you have plenty left over from your harvesting. You could go and you could be a support to your community by helping to refill, right? Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're a book person and you realize that your community is a little low on literacy. It's struggling in that area. Maybe your libraries are struggling in your community. I know in my community here, it's a fairly, um, I would say, suburban slash rural, so we have free libraries in our community. So one of the things that I do is I go and I take books, especially a lot of them that I have here that I've already read, and I go and refill the free libraries in my community. Nobody has to tell me to go refill them. It's something that I do to participate in community building. All right. If you grew up in a dysfunctional family, the author says, it might be hard to know who to trust. Trusting everyone can be unhealthy, but trusting no one is also unhealthy. It's advantageous to learn to discern whom you can trust. So maybe you are that person right? That says, I would love to be in community, but folks are crazy these days. People are a little bit on the I don't know side. I feel a little bit unsure, right, about diving in the community. It's almost like double dutch, right? If you've ever seen the two ropes going, and the person is kind of on the outside, they're weaving and bobbing, and they're trying to figure out how do I hop in and join in a community. You could be feeling that way, right? Here are some signs that it is safe to be vulnerable. It is safe to jump in and explore that community. One, you notice that the people in your community are curious about your story. Maybe you are new to a community. I know there is a lot of geographical travel and shifts happening right now. A lot of people are moving from state to state. They're trying to get to what I call the free states because of some of the things that are happening state to state, so that you might be in a totally new state, not just a new community or new neighborhood. But are the people curious about who you are, your story? Are they vulnerable with you? This is really important. I remember a couple of places my husband and I moved, and people would come up and they'd be like, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" Like they would just get right to it. They wouldn't like small talk. Hey, how are you? How's the weather? What's your name? No, it would be, hi. So who are you and why are you here? Who are you and what brings you here? Where are you from? And we had to get used to that. That took a little getting used to. But at the same time, we kind of turned those questions back. So you look for the people who are not just asking you questions and are curious about you, but also look for people who are also vulnerable with you. If you're asking me questions, I should be able to ask you questions back and get some answers, right? When they listen to you, you actually feel heard, and that person affirms you in the moment. They demonstrate integrity with you in sharing. They consistently show up for you. Now, obviously, if you're new in a community, it's going to take a little bit of time to see these things. So maybe you don't jump right into the community activity, right? Maybe you take some time to get to know the people in your community. But we know that vulnerability will lead you to authentic relationships. So show up as yourself, be honest, recognize when people are being nosy. They don't need to know your whole life story, but be honest and clear about who you are and your expectations. And you will, I believe you will, find your community. And finally, keep your connections alive. Sometimes we start a conversation or we start getting in relationship with people, and then we back away or we don't communicate as often, right? But being in healthy relationships requires time and consistency. Maintaining contact regularly over a period of time, even if it's only once a week, will help you begin to build healthy relationships. Waiting for the other person to reach out first might not help you stay connected in a manner that works for you. If you want a relationship, put your best foot forward, hoping that the other person does the same. Of course, not all relationships will work out. Let go of the ones that need to be released while being open to new ones. A friend of mine I was just talking to a couple of days ago, um, really good. We spent a couple hours on the phone, and I was laughing at her because she was like, I have no new friends. And she was very adamant about this. She was like, listen, she said, most of my friends are 25 years old friendships, 30-year-old friendships, 20-year-old friendships. She said, I think the youngest friendship I have is about 10 years. I said, oh, well, you're doing better than I am. Well, in terms of the different kinds of aging of friendships, I said, well, my newest friendship, I would probably say, she said, you probably have gained new friends in the last 5 years, but really they're probably still more like acquaintances. And I said, I have to concede that because um, maybe one or two of them, I have allowed them into my home, and the other ones I have not. And so I thought about that and I said, she's actually right. I am maintaining connection, but I wouldn't say that these are deep, abiding friendships yet. I'm still in that connecting phase and I have to keep going, right? If I want to build a deeper relationship, if I want to build a deeper relationship, I have to keep going. So, some exercises the author asks us to try out here at the end of this chapter. She says, expect some relationships to end. The best thing you can wish for is that they end without drama. I am big on that now. I am too old in my life, too mature in my life to be ending relationships with drama. It's unnecessary. So, if at all possible, if you have to end a relationship, try to do it without drama. There's no reason that when you're disconnecting with a person, unless they have done something egregious to you, unless they have like violated you or violated your property or something like that, there's no reason why you shouldn't be ending your relationships without drama. Exercise. Grab your journal or a piece of paper to complete the following prompts. So these are your challenges for today in terms of thought beyond our segment and even writing. One, do you have any friends, neighbors, or mentors that you view as family? Now, I would add on to that, do they view you as family? Because sometimes we can have a view of our relationship that is not reciprocal. And again, that can be where some disappointment comes in because maybe you see yourself as having a closer relationship with someone than they do with you. So check that. Is it reciprocal? And then, two, how can you begin to foster deep connections with people outside your biological family? Are you doing that now? Do you plan to continue? How are you keeping those connections alive? All right. Next week, we're going to actually move on to part 3 of this book, which is growing. And I think this is going to be a good chapter because right now, a lot of people that I see, especially in my age group, I am a Generation X, Generation X, troubleshooting relationships with parents. Troubleshooting relationships with parents. Now, I can tell you from my personal experience, one, my father is deceased. He is no longer in this realm, but we were able to have a pretty good relationship before he passed away. So I can tell you a little bit about that on next time. But my mom is dealing with mental health challenges. And so we don't have communication right now. We don't have connection right now. So this will be a good chapter because we'll talk about how do we troubleshoot relationships with parents, whether your parent is present, whether your parent is absent. Some of the topics that we'll cover is getting over your feelings, deciding to stay and work through a relationship or leave, how to stop hating your parents if you hate your parents. Thankfully, I don't hate my parents. I do understand their story, so I think that makes a difference. Um, yeah, so those are some good ones. How to manage when you are dependent, how to manage being a caregiver to your parents. What do you have? What would happen if you're in the position where you are now having to be that caregiver to your parent? A lot of people right now are moving into that position where they're having to be their parents' caregiver. Quite a few of my friends, um, their parents are not at a place of like hospice or anything like that, but they're definitely older. They're frailer. They might be dealing with health challenges that require some sight sound supervision. And so a lot of them have chosen to either move their parents in with them or to move in with their parents. So we'll cover that in the coming chapter. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I do want to thank you for your time and for your attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness, so continue to go out and be light. Take care, be well, but most importantly, be light.